So this piece of glassware is called a volumetric flask, and these come in a variety of sizes. So this one that I'm holding in my hand is a 250 ml volumetric flask. In the lab, the first time you use a volumetric flask, you'll actually be using one that's about a tenth of that size. This is a 25 ml volumetric flask. Now, the use is the same, okay? They're just different in size. So this is what we call a TC piece of glassware, and that means that it contains the amount that is written on it. So this particular one holds 250 mils at 20 degrees Celsius and has a tolerance of 0.24 mils. So it's plus or minus 0.24 mils when you fill it. You're going to fill it, and you're going to know you have the exact amount that's written on there by filling it to the line. So there'll be a line etched on the neck. So what we want to do is, to start with, we're going to pour our liquid into the flask. Now you can use a funnel if you want, but you need to be careful when you're using a funnel with a volumetric flask, because frequently what will happen is the tail of the funnel the stem of the funnel will sit down in the neck and will all of a sudden cause the volume to move up real rapidly. So you always want to be kind of careful. I usually just fill it with an appropriately sized beaker. And you want to fill it so that you're close to the line on the neck, but not all the way to the line. So you're going to add the last little bit amount by using an eyedropper, similar to the way that we filled our graduated cylinder to our exact amount. So we always want to make sure, if we're using a volumetric flask, that we're getting the amount right to the line on the neck. So I'm going to have to put a little more in there. So when I do this, I'm getting bubbles because I poured it right in there. So I stop short. And then what I want to do is I want to add the remainder using an eyedropper so that I don't overflow the line on the neck. I want my meniscus, again, to be sitting right on the line on that neck. And again, when I do it, I want to look at it at eye level. I want it sitting on a flat surface so that I know that the line is horizontal. And then I'm just going to keep adding it a few drops at a time until I get right near that line. And then I want the bottom of my meniscus to sit right at the line. Now, this is considered to be a piece of analytical glassware. And you'll be using this for a couple of different purposes. One time you'll be using it, when you use the 25 mil, you'll be using it to get an exact volume, which you're going to weigh on the balance, and then you'll have a mass and a volume, and you can determine the density. Sometimes you're doing what we refer to as dilutions in a volumetric flask. So in that case, what you typically do is you add a known amount of some reagent, some chemical, and then you dilute it using water. So when you do a dilution in a volumetric flask, you always want to make sure that you shake it. Right? And in order to do that, you're going to get a cap that fits firmly on the top of it, and the cap number is typically marked on the side of the flask. Once it's sealed on there, then you pick it up, and you have to turn it upside down, right side up. Do that several times, because this long, skinny neck is going to make it difficult to get good mixing throughout, and you want to have a homogeneous solution when you're making a dilution. So you always want to make sure that you invert it several times and get a good mixture. You also want to make sure before you use it that it's clean. And so typically what you would do is you would rinse it out with tap water, with a little bit of Alkanox if you need to, and then tap water. And then you rinse it with distilled water. And then before you use it, because it's very difficult to dry it, what you want to do is, if you're making an aqueous solution, then your last rinse would be distilled water. If you're pouring something into it that's already made up, you want to rinse it with a little bit of whatever the solution is. So in the case of the salt solutions that you're going to be measuring in the small volumetric flask, you want to make sure that you rinse the volumetric flask with a little bit of the new solution that you're putting in it each time.
So you know that's the only thing.